Okay, welcome back to our webinar for a certified fire protection specialist exam preparation. And our topic for tonight is about uh, organizing fire and rescue services. So I've just noticed that most of the students are from the previous batch, and I don't know what happened to those SFP students, but anyhow, it will not stop us to do our objective. Okay, so welcome to again NFPA Certified Fire Protection Specialist course, and let us discuss the CFPS Organizing the Fire and Rescue Services. We will learn the steps involved with the pre-incident planning process and how the emergency services and responses are organized. We'll also try to review the apparatus and equipment need in the fire department and how to clean and maintain the personal protective equipment, or simply the PPE. Our objective is to recall major topics in Section 12 and 13 of your Fire Protection Handbook, outline the pre-incident planning process for industrial, municipal, and general emergency response, describe organization for fire loss prevention, emergency operation and medical services, and indicate the challenge and the requirements of training fire and emergency service personnel. We'll also describe the operation of public emergency service alarm, dispatch and communication system, confirm necessary fire department apparatus and equipment, discuss the cleaning and maintaining the standard of PPE, and summarize the management of fire response operation. So we will cover most of the section 12 and 13 of your fire protection handbook, and let us hear some of the wisdom from Mr. Randy and Karen Bernadette about the module for tonight. So let us start from pre-incident planning, industrial, municipal, and general emergency response.
April 9th, 1998, the Herrig Brothers Poultry Farm. April 9th, 1998, the Herrig Brothers Poultry Farm, Albert City, Iowa. Two teenagers were joyriding on an ATV when they crashed into piping from a 42-foot-long propane storage tank. Propane gushed from the tank. An excess flow valve failed to stop the leak. The gas likely drifted toward a hot propane vaporizer 37 feet away and ignited. Flames engulfed the tank and began to heat the propane inside. 20 volunteer firefighters were called to the scene, but were unable to stop the leak. They planned to let the fire burn itself out. But meanwhile, they would spray down the adjacent turkey barns to keep the fire from spreading. Based on their training and guidance, the firefighters believed that in the event of an explosion, they would be protected if they stayed away from the end of the burning tank. As the fire continued to rage, flames directly heated the upper section of the tank wall, above the level of the liquid. Without liquid to transfer the heat, the upper section of the tank wall began to overheat and weaken. Minutes later, the propane tank blew apart, sending metal fragments in all directions. Pieces of the tank struck the firefighters, killing 2. Other deadly fragments narrowly missed 2 others. 7 firefighters were injured. Other debris smashed into buildings. The firefighters were victims of a BLEVE, a boiling liquid expanding vapor explosion, a hazard they had never trained or prepared for. April 9th.
So the successful fire department prepare for the potential fire operation prior to actual alarm. A precedent plan is one of the most valuable tool available to aid the fire department in making those necessary preparation. And the Section 12, Chapter 17 and 18 of your Fire Protection Handbook provide the information about this necessary response tool. So there's a term pre-incident planning. So pre-incident planning is described as the development of a written an incident action plan based upon on the information or data that has been gathered about specific facility construction and the occupancy hazard and fire protection system. The pre-incident planning ensure that the responding emergency personnel know as much as they can about the facility before an incident occur. And it takes considerable effort, training, coordination, and resources to plan for a potential incident. The first phase of the planning process occur before an incident and proceeds under the assumption that the incident or hazard may occur. Fire services are often the entity that will assess a commercial facility through a survey that asks questions regarding construction characteristics, power planning, storage arrangement, and water supply availability. This process of data collection requires significant amount of time and effort, and upon the completion, a response strategy is formed that takes existing condition into account. The planning involves communication between the fire services and facility management, and as well as the property insurance and risk engineer. In addition, other community resources may also take part in preparing for potential incident such as police, public utility, and environmental agency. Most large industrial and commercial facility develop their own emergency operation that involve ongoing effort to coordinate with area with fire services. In such situation, a pre-incident plan must be continually updated, so meaning it is not a one-time activity and require a high level of commitment, communication, and cooperation among stakeholders or pre-incident partner. And during the emergency, the pre-incident plan drives the operation. The leadership team use data collected before the incident to determine the strategy for mitigation and the successful resolution of the incident. And after the incident, the fire investigation evaluate and improve the assumption and prediction for the next emergency. And the planning process is continually updated, iterative, with each cycle improve upon whatever lesson learned as we improve the plan. So to further understand, we need to define the principle planning. Okay, a part of this activity is to gather general and detailed data about the facility and require willingness by facility department to allow fire protection professional to come into the facility, tell them what they need to know. So meaning we have to be transparent with the first responder so that the fire responder will be able to assess effectively the potential risk that your facility is exposed. To make data gather effective, the fire protection professional must know what question to ask and must react positively when they get the truthful answer. And the data components needed for pre-incident planning, we will discuss that. So one is the occupancy. So one of the data is the occupancy. So this is our first priority is life safety. Facility occupancy is very important in establishing incident priority and tactical operation. Many factors can influence the number and location of people in industrial and commercial facility. Ask question about hours of operation, heavy traffic times, and physical layout of the facility, as well as the busy days of the week or time of the year. The physical layout of the facility will also have an impact on the type of life safety concern the firefighter may face during an incident. During the building construction, you need also to gather data. So meaning the information on the roof construction, including the support, wall, floor, is a very important data for effective pre-sale planning. The construction specification, such as structural framing, building material, and interior and exterior finish, can also be a factor in the rate and extent of fire spread within the building. Ask question about the false ceiling and attic space, conveyor openings, and utility of elevator shafts. Pay particular attention to the location on the building entrance, exit, interior hallway, stair, and other means of escape or egress. And let us discuss another type of data components that we should gather facility as part of our pre-incident planning is protection and a knowledge of the fire protection in the building, of how the system operates, and what action are necessary to supplement this system are important part of pre-incident planning. Identify those types of alarm and sprinkler system and obtain minimum sprinkler flow and pressure requirements for major area of the facility. Again, depends on the type of hazard and occupancy. As about special protection system and water supply and standby might also be need to consider. And another data important in the data gathering is site consideration. Pre-sale planning should include other site considerations such as proximity to the street, railroad crossing, bridges, exposure to the site from neighboring building, standing or tidal water, wooded area, airport flight path. Consider alternative approach to the site if normal routes are unusable. Data gathering security service to the site should be also obtained, including the number of security personnel, where they are normally located, and the presence of guard dogs. As about utility, emergency generator, HVAC system, fuel storage tank, and yard, so whatever system you have. Each and every system might expose some sort of risk. And not only that, and in the life safety, we're not just concerned about no, life safety or fire protection. We're considering everything, including security safety also. Outside assistance. During many incident, the fire service personnel assisted by other agency or other industrial facility capable of providing the support function necessary to control the fire. Interagency and outside assistance is important to the outcome of emergency incidents. Coordination, cooperation, you know, with the first responder. Be aware of this outside support and any mutual aid impact with neighboring community, and you might be able, you might consider part of your pre-incident planning process. There is other data that emergency personnel must know in advance of an incident. These components are less stable and predictable than the construction or occupancy of the building. These are temporary and conditional components that can pose risk or hazard at the site. mostly about 80% of the hazards or risk exposure in the facility can be identified in advance. It can be part of the pre-incident planning process. Disruption of water or a power supply, weather, location, and extent of fire, the time of the day, interconnection between the building that are not visible from the street are all aspects that must be considered when creating, reviewing, and evaluating the pre-incident action plan. This is sometimes referred to as the size up. Let's check the activity. Complete the pre-incident planning process or the steps in the plan and place these flowchart steps in the correct order. So first, now, so what will be the first? So basically, uh, normally the first responder is more expert than us, to identify the whatever risk we're exposed in the facility. So basically, it's important to get the expert advice, probably to consult with others who have a direct experience, uh, let's say the first responder, on whatever kind of risk you are exposed. And you can see this series or steps in page 12-291 of your fire protection handbook. Another is survey the site, survey all potential hazard or risk. Then evaluate how severe, or what is the potential impact of those identified risk. Then based on the identified risk, develop your strategy on how to control or mitigate those hazards. Test the plan through testing, drilling, and mock exercise. You know, if you're going to train your personnel, you need also to test their knowledge, and maintain the plan. And for me, number seven, whenever significant changes in the facility, you might need to call a prompt review. We might need to revise the plan. Okay. So let's discuss the organizing the fire loss prevention, emergency operation, and medical services.
April 26, 2018. The Husky Energy Refinery in Superior, Wisconsin. At approximately 10 a.m., a large explosion occurred in the refinery's fluid catalytic cracking and gas concentration unit. Debris from the explosion was thrown in all directions. One piece flew about 200 feet and hit a large above-ground asphalt storage tank, puncturing the side of the tank and releasing hot asphalt. Asphalt from the tank spread along the ground and into the refinery's units. Initial small fires from the explosion were extinguished quickly by emergency responders from the refinery's emergency response team. Members of the City of Superior's fire department, which has a strategic partnership with the refinery, also responded to the incident. Captain Cameron Volbrecht was on the scene.
So at first, the Husky Refinery personnel were managing a small pressure fire while we were doing the medical. And actually, we had the incident, felt like it was fairly well under control. And that's when that secondary asphalt fire had started.
The large asphalt fire ignited near the storage tanks and traveled along the stream of asphalt to the refinery's crude and fluid catalytic cracking units. Typically, this type of asphalt fire can burn for days. Jerome Quimby is the emergency response team coordinator and fire chief at the refinery.
Asphalt fires can be very difficult because of the amount of heat. In this case, also because of the amount of asphalt in our way to get there. And so they could easily have gone on 2 to 3, maybe even 5 days. But we really wanted to at least try to make an attempt to put this out as soon as possible.
A plan was developed, and around 3 p.m., emergency responders from both the refinery emergency response team and the Superior Fire Department began to address the asphalt fire. A fire truck drove to the edge of the crude unit, and emergency responders sprayed dry chemical fire extinguisher inside. Responders also used 2 stationary hoses called monitors to shoot water into the crude unit in an attempt to extinguish the flames. While these fires were being put out, over by the storage tanks, emergency responders began to approach the large area of burning asphalt. The plan was to push the asphalt into an empty area near the storage tanks and then aggressively attack the fire from multiple directions. First, they used 2 monitors, one to the north and another to the west, to sweep water to push the asphalt fire toward the designated containment area. Then, when the fires within the refinery's units had been extinguished, the fire truck relocated so that it could spray the burning asphalt in the containment area with foam from the east. Around 5:30 p.m., an additional team began to attack the fire from the south, spraying foam from a monitor. At this point, the asphalt fire was completely surrounded within the containment area. With the fire contained, emergency responders were able to put out the asphalt fire around 7 p.m. The massive asphalt fire had been extinguished in a matter of hours, as opposed to days, as had been initially feared.
So it was really a beautiful thing to watch, to see all 4 streams do what they were supposed to do and keep the foam where we needed it, and that was on the fire and the product to put it out.
For us on the ground, it was really obvious that we were working in what it would have been like a thunderstorm the whole time, where it's very dark, very little sunlight. But noticing when the fire body knocked down, we could look up and see the sun again, and how bright it got was pretty amazing, and how quick that happened.
Scott Gordon is a battalion chief with the City of Superior's Fire Department. He believes the partnership between the Superior Fire Department and the refinery helped his team better respond to the incident.
We started the partnership about 5 years ago, and we did it to try to protect our community better. You know, we're a municipal fire department. We all go to school and get our training in fighting structure fires, but we've got the petroleum sector that's here. So it allows us to have specialized equipment that we only use when fighting industrial fires, and then it allows us to train on using that equipment that's only going to be used when it comes to industrial firefighting.
April.
So let us check the Fire Protection Handbook. So organize the fire service. Elements involved in organizing, administering, and managing agency provide fire and rescue response services. That is in Section 12, again in Chapter 4 of your Fire Protection Handbook. Fire Protection Service Organization vary widely in the character, from the volunteer department with little revenue to full service agency that employ career firefighter and civilian staff. They also differ in their source of jurisdiction or authority. Let's see what you may already know about this different organization, and let us try to compare. No? So let us discuss a department of the municipal government. So what you think? A firefighter or a responder that's normally associated with the municipal government. So normally we call them a department of the municipal government. So normally we call them city fire department. Okay. So next, administer several public safety operation. So normally that is our the fire bureau. Okay. And then municipalities join together for cost effectiveness and safety. That is county fire department. Okay. You have to remember, guys, because you have a quiz, no? Independent unit supported by district tax. That is what we call fire district. Contract fire protection from a nearby fire department. We call it fire protection district. And lastly, obviously, funded by subscription or donation volunteer, no? Volunteers. Now let's take a deeper look at this fire service agency that has discussed the fire protection district. It is a unit that contracts fire protection from a nearby fire department. The arrangement provides timely fire protection for a rural and suburban area that might otherwise find it difficult to maintain the effective and experienced firefighting forces. The contract with the Fire Protection District is a valuable source of financial support to the small municipal fire department that participate as well in providing the fire apparatus for use in rural area. Many place individual properties known to be deficient in firefighting resources may also contract for firefighting assistance, either from basic force alarm or for traditional assistance when fighting major fire. And again, the fire protection district contracts fire protection from a nearby fire department. Let's discuss now the volunteer fire. No? So probably the portion of their funds are through public activity or subscription. Tax dollars comprise the majority of funding available to the volunteer fire agency, and most of the tax dollar come from local tax source. Equipment donation we also receive from interested unit of government. Many volunteer fire associations maintain excellent equipment and facility. They can also provide location for various community activity. And again, volunteer fire funded primarily by subscription or either charity or donation. City Fire Department is the most common type of fire protection agency. The Department of Municipal Government. The head of the department report to the chief administrative officer of the municipality, and normally typically the city manager or the mayor of the city or town. In some case, the head of the department reports to fire commission as well. Most large municipality as well as many small community operates in this type of fire service operation. And again, city fire department is the most common, yet a department of the municipal government. So let's discuss the fire district. So fire district is another type of a public fire protection which organized under the provision of the state or provincial law. It is in effect a separate independent unit of government having its own governing body composed of commissioner, trustee, or other officials and commonly supported by tax levied throughout the district. And again, the fire district is an independent unit supported by district tax. Fire Bureau is very less common compared to city fire department, which is usually a division of a department or a department of public safety. This type of organization, the department head managed the administration of several important operations, including the fire, police, and 911. Since September 11 attack in 2001, this type of fire service agency have grown in the use as communities recognize the value of leveraging the expertise of multiple public safety discipline. And again, the Fire Bureau administer several public safety operation. And the last but not the least, the County Fire Department, a type of organization where suburban municipality join together to enjoy the benefits of large, professionally administered public fire department with a staff and service facility that they could not afford individually. So meaning, small uh, fire department or suburban municipality fire department will join together to become large and be able to have state-of-the-art facility that could not afford if they will do it individually. The transition to a County Fire Prevention Office and the fire communication system are put in place, and communities see a good cost effectiveness and organization expediency in this model or venture. Again, County Fire Department, municipalities join together for cost effectiveness and safety. Okay. Now let us discuss the fire services and the role of this expanded far beyond its original mission of fire suppression. Normally, if you think about fire department, fire rescue agency, fire. No? But again, the role expanded as the time passed by. Each community established the array and level of services expected of its fire and rescue department. In fact, the term fire department does not begin to cover the many services this organization is now provide to their communities. The citizen, municipality, and businesses depend on the fire department to protect them not just from the fire but for any form of any emergency, fire, entrapment, explosion, building collapse, even natural disaster, and other incident can result in the mass casualty such as biological, chemical, and radiological hazards or events. Fire and Rescue Agency also increasingly provide proactive services such as fire prevention and building code enforcement, the public and occupational safety education, and pre-incident planning program. Of course, the fire rescue services also include fire investigation and emergency medical services or EMS, sophisticated rescue and extrication services, as well as hazardous material response or we call it hazmat. The most successful fire department, like other organizations, operate as a team where the department leader, the division, and the sections are equally important to serve the community. And a department that function effectively will divide and coordinate work based on organization principle. Well, you can tailor your fund organization chart, but arrange in the most successful way, in the most beneficial way. Okay. And if you see here, the deputy chief reports to the fire chief. Principle number one. Okay. And one of the basic organization principle is to operate according to the plan. An organization plan will show relationship between the operating division and the total organization itself, allow the department to manage effectively. A good organization plan reflects the current status of the department is essentially a blueprint of the company or organization. And the second important principle, as the department increase the size and complexity of the process, the need for coordination should also increase, as what you can see on your screen. So it's like more taller, vertical chart. The logical grouping of similar function and tasks help promote interaction necessary to successful management. And this grouping should be based on the function that must be performed, such as fire prevention, training, and communication. The basic tactical unit of the fire department is the company, a group of personnel operating one or more pieces of apparatus under the supervision of a company officer. Several company or task force may operate from a single fire station. Engine and ladder company are most common. We will explain what is that. No? And other company are often provided to perform combined or specialized function. This company include the rescue squad, and the company operates special tactical or support function apparatus. So let us discuss the engine company. And remember, in your quiz or in your exam, engine company is the most common type of company in the fire department. The basic unit of the apparatus is the engine or pumper, which carry the hose, nozzle, a water tank, a pump, ground ladder, appliance, the tools, and assorted equipment. The engine company basic tactical role is to deliver water through hose line to control the fire. So normally this is what we see, no? Normally the fire truck. Now let us discuss ladder company. The ladder company, or sometimes they also call it truck company, is an aerial ladder of elevating platform, provide access to rooftops or other area above the ground level. It also direct elevated mass to stream of water onto fire. So another is still the ladder company. No, so ladder trucks carry a complement of ground ladder and the selection of hand and power tool. On the fire ground, the ladder company perform search and rescue operation, forcible entry, ventilation, salvage of usable material, and overhaul. Okay. Another type of organization is rescue company, and many departments use separate rescue company for both firefighting and non-fire related incident. Rescue company specialize in technical rescue. For example, extricating the victim from a vehicle involved in accident, removing injured person from perilous location, and assisting the victims of industrial accidents. In addition to provide search and rescue operation, the rescue company deliver medical treatment to civilians as well and responder on the fireground. Special Apparatus Company. The fire department often use specialized vehicle such as off-road vehicle for brush fire, water tenders, hose wagons, foam pumpers, hazardous material unit, lighting trucks, breathing air supply trucks, and command vehicles. And this may organize as a separate company, or the role may be assigned as a second function to regular company. In many authority having jurisdiction, the fire service has expanded and acquired specialized apparatus and vehicle for use, such as mobile decontamination trailer, incident communication center, command and control vehicle, medical operation unit, mobile radiological detection and monitoring station, and a multidiscipline response unit. Let us discuss mutual aid and major emergency, the fire event, natural disaster and disease outbreak like the current pandemic, what we are facing right now, or terrorist attack could overwhelm local emergency service. For this scenario, most fire departments traditionally rendered assistance to each other in times of need. Mutual aid plan, pacts or agreement are created among the fire and rescue services, including other emergency responders, to lend assistance across jurisdictional boundary. This may occur when alarms are near boundaries between fire departments. Another example is if there are multiple major fire. Another example is a disaster or multiple alarm fire exceeds local resources and when the specialized firefighting equipment unavailable for a particular incident. For example, now what's happening, let's say in California, no? The wildfire. So basically, there should be a mutual aid plans. An effective communication system is important in the fire and rescue operation. Communication system is responsible to receive notification of emergency from the public, alerting and dispatching appropriate personnel and equipment, coordinating the activities of units engaged in emergency incident, and provide communication for non-emergency response. In some community, the mutual aid agreement include provision for two or more fire department to be dispatched through one emergency number. So let's say 911 and the communication center as though it was a single department. The communication needs to function across the jurisdiction. Effective communication system include the radio system, GPS, what we're having now in your mobile phone, in many uh, gadget available in your vehicle, computer equipment, and the software to coordinate the system and other communication tool. We have to check your knowledge and use our chat box to provide the right answer. Which type of company might deliver medical treatment to civilian and responder? So we call it rescue company, Mr. Brian. In addition to provide search and rescue, the rescue company deliver also medical treatment to civilian and responders, not only the civilian, including the injured responders like firefighters on the foreground. In a medium or large size fire department, which operate in division, responsible for public fire and life safety education? Answer? Okay. So the answer is prevention. One of the duty of the Prevention Operating Division in a medium or large size fire department is a public fire and life safety education. Let us discuss the training requirements for the fire and emergency service personnel. When a firefighter responds in an emergency, the situation is already out of control. With a shortened time frame to think things through, the rapid emergency response makes effective training even more important. Acquiring and maintaining a high level of training in a fire and emergency service is more than a matter of efficiency. It can become a matter of a personal survival at any moment of time. As we discussed earlier, the role of fire and rescue services extend to many types of emergency responses more than responding the fire. The training for each response is complex and the skills needs must be ingrained before the emergency occur. Varied and continuous training is required throughout an individual career. It is not only required by numerous federal and state regulation, but it is also the expectation of the community that the fire and rescue personnel are protecting. Changing the hazard constantly affect the lives of firefighter and create risk to the public. Evolving technology also provide the new way to deal with this risk and hazard. Ongoing and comprehensive full service training program ensure that the firefighter can protect themselves and be ready to provide assistance to everyone else. There are many sources for this necessary training, including federal level, national level, state, and local agency. When a firefighter responds to an emergency incident, the situation is already out of control. This is what makes the fire and emergency response training important. That's what we discussed earlier. Determine each training statement is true or false. First, ongoing full service training program protect lives and property. Is it true or false? True or false? Answer? Okay. Mr. Brad and Much Steady, correct? Okay. Next question. Training for each fire and emergency response is complicated but unchanging. Not unchanging, but like dynamic, no? Iterative process, no? That's what we discussed. The varied and continuous training is needed throughout an individual career. So obviously, it is true. Another question, evolving technology makes response apparent in a crisis. Meaning apparent means it's making us more exposed in a greater risk. So that's the meaning of that. No? So it must be false. Okay, you're correct, Mr. Brian. Response skills are easy to learn and remember when an emergency happen. False. Okay. Response training is complex and skill must be ingrained before a crisis. So, Mr. Brian, that is true. Okay. Acquiring and maintaining high level of training is a matter of survival. This is correct, no? Not after. Correct. You have to be expert responding in a particular crisis before an emergency occur. No? So that is true, Mr. Coltrane. Okay. Public Emergency Services Communication System. The Communication Center is a critical component of the jurisdiction comprehensive emergency management plan. When creating a communication network, the first step is to establish a central communication point through which all related process and control function will be directed. And the center is where requests for an emergency assistance are received and translated into an appropriate response. The communication center provides logistical support to the responding unit until the situation is under control. It must be designed to prevent disruption of operation by fire, natural disaster, including criminal activity. In the event of disaster, an alternate communication center should be identified capable of performing the essential function the same with the primary center. The Fire Protection Handbook explore public emergency services, dispatch, and communication in Section 12 and Chapter 15 of your Fire Protection Handbook. No matter how well designed, installed, and maintained, no system is better than the people who operate. Communication system should be supervised by responsible and competent people whose duties include directing, testing, and inspection program. The public safety telecommunicators should have the ability to remain calm, take decisive action during the emergency, remain alert during periods of inactivity, and while carrying out the normal repetitive operation, and work harmoniously with other people. Fire and other emergency are reported from three principal sources: the general public, businesses, business sector meaning, and industry, and other public service and the safety agency. Reports of these events can occur by telephone, public alarm reporting system, a two-way radio communication system, or intelligent transportation system. Irrespective of how the event is reported, it is crucial to identify the location and the nature of the incident. Other data must be gathered include times of alarm and dispatch, the time of arrival and departure from the scene, and other significant events related to the incident. It is more important and often legally required to keep accurate records of the incidents that the fire and emergency services responding to. Let's check your knowledge, guys. The process for reporting an emergency may utilize which of the following mean? So I think we are looking on a multiple answer. Okay, so the answer is B, C, and D. The reporting process may utilize any of the following mean individually or in combination of telephones, the public alarm reporting system, two-way radio communication system, and intelligent transportation system. Let us proceed with the fire department apparatus and equipment. The fire apparatus and equipment are important to fire department to provide fire suppression and emergency services. Without the proper tools and the knowledge of how to use this tool correctly, a fire department cannot do its job effectively. The fire apparatus refers to the fire vehicles and the extensive assortment of the tool and equipment they carry, such as the pump, hose, water tank, aerial ladder, or elevated platform, and the ground ladders as well. The term fire equipment is given to various portable tools and appliances support suppression and rescue efforts. So the one of the fire apparatus, we call it pumper, and the pumper are vehicle designed for a sustained pumping operation during structural firefighting and for supporting associated fire operation. The pumper truck are often provide the initial fire suppression attack on the structural, vehicular, or vegetation fire. So again, the pumper sustained pumping operation and an initial fire suppression attack. If you see, including the wildfire. So another fire apparatus is the mobile foam fire apparatus. It is similar to a pumper, except instead of carrying water, it will have a foam concentrate tank and foam proportioning capability. This apparatus is generally used in industrial environment for the control and extinguishment of the flammable yet combustible liquid fire and storage tank and other flammable liquid spills, and as what we discussed before is type B or type K fire, which is oil or liquid fire. The foam system or the foam suppression agent is very useful. Wildland firefighting apparatus are defined as the vehicle equipped with a pump, water tank, hose, and equipment, which is capable of supporting the pump and roll operation. This apparatus supports the wildland firefighting and provide the exposure protection for other properties if they are also threatened. And uh, lastly, the aerial ladder or elevated platform, defined as the vehicle that have been designed to provide elevated firefighting and rescue capability. These apparatus provide access to high-rise window, rooftops, or other area to rescue individual or to assist in a fire suppression by directing elevated stream of water on the fire. and an apparatus must be equipped with the tools and appliances necessary to accomplish the fireground operations. As you would expect, the fire equipment, including hoses, nozzles, and ground ladders. However, there are a wide variety of other appliances that firefighter may require to perform their jobs effectively. Fire equipment may vary, depends on the needs and operation of each company. This may include equipment such as one of that is what we call self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA. Self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA. Cutting tool for forcing entry and ventilating smoke from a building. Positive pressure fan or and smoke ejector for ventilation, generator, portable lights, and sometimes you also need the thermal imaging camera. The fire apparatus and equipment are important to life safety and must be in a top-notch condition for effective emergency response. Regular inspection, testing, and maintenance, or ITM, on all apparatus and equipment should be conducted according with the manufacturer's recommendation and NFPA standard. Appropriate retirement of the severely worn, broken, or outdated apparatus or equipment should be included in that program. Care, maintenance, and testing of hose is particularly important to ensure reliability. A burst hose at a fire may seriously injure firefighter and other individual may mean a loss of time bringing a fire under control. Sudden closure of nozzle can cause pressure surge which will damage the fire hose. Special care should be taken to avoid freezing the hose during the cold climates or burning the hose at a forest or grass or wildfire. So before the break, we will be having again to check our knowledge. The first question, the City Fire Department is looking to purchase a new piece of apparatus. They need an apparatus capable of carrying 1,000 gallon of water equipped with a with 750 gallon per minute pump. The apparatus must be red in color and equipped with a diesel engine. Also, the apparatus must be able to carry supply and attack hose and miscellaneous equipment. What apparatus would best meet the fire department's need? So the answer is only one. Okay? Engine. Anyway, engine or pumper side. The pumper or vehicle with a pump, water tank, and storage to carry supply and attack hose, line, and miscellaneous equipment. Okay? So let us break for 15 minutes. Resume. Let us discuss the use and function of the personal protective equipment or simply the PPE. When there's a fire, firefighters are responding with all their appropriate PPE. And let us hear the wordings from Mr. Randy, the Director and Technical Training Supervisor and Fire Investigator.
When there is a fire, the firefighters are responding with all of their appropriate PPE. They have their turnout gear, they have their self-contained breathing apparatus. When the fire investigators arrive, the fire has been extinguished. And as a result, the fire investigator may go in without the necessary PPE, not realizing that there are still hazards there, such as the dust and the fumes that are coming off, the debris that is still smoldering, that is still hot, that are extremely dangerous. And if the investigator is not aware of that, he is inhaling and being exposed to very hazardous material, but not necessarily thinking about it. They are more times concentrated on not falling through a floor, not having tripping over something, not having something fall on them, and are not conscious of these other hazards, which can have a latency period and have serious consequences. When there is a fire,
The personal protective clothing or PPC and the personal protective equipment or PPE play an essential role in safeguarding the firefighter and emergency responder against the potential hazards of their jobs. These protective garments and equipment must be consistently and properly used, cleaned, and maintained to work effectively. PPE is designed to protect specific area of the body. The head protection. The head area include the head, the face, the neck, and the chin. The fire helmet are made of durable, heat-resistant material to protect the firefighter's head area from both heat and falling debris. Firefighters also wear a fire-resistant hood, or we call it balaclava, made of Nomex to protect their head, neck, and the face. Another is the eye protection or safety goggle, face shield, and safety glass has been shown to reduce an injury by shielding eyes from heat and particulates. The face shield and goggles that are part of the helmet must meet the requirements of NPA 1971, the standard of the protective assembles for structural firefighting and proximity firefighting. Another is the respiratory protection. We call it self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA, and supplied air respirator or SAR are respirator supply. This equipment provides respiratory protection by supplying the firefighter or emergency responder with a breathing air from the source other than the ambient atmosphere, which may include the toxic fire gases. And the body protection is divided into two basic categories: structural and proximity firefighting ensembles, and specialty PPE. The PPC used for structural firefighting typically entails tornado pants and jackets made of two-layer fabric designed to repel the heat and wick away any moisture that get inside. For other operations where fire produce extreme level of conductive, convective, and radiant heat, or where there are other physical hazard, the PPE used for structural and proximity firefighting is not suitable. In these circumstances, specialty PPE is essential. Arm and hand protection. The firefighter gloves provide arm and hand protection against heat and harmful substance. This thick leather glove extend past the wrist and heavily insulated so that the firefighter can safely handle hot object and move through the burning structure. The foot protection, okay. The last but not the least is the waterproof boots provide foot protection that function well on wet surface. This boot also typically have reinforced steel toe and soles to protect firefighter if they step on or accidentally kick sharp object at the emergency site.
In a particular investigation that I did in South Florida involved a high school that was under renovation. The high school was contaminated with asbestos, which was part of the renovation to abate the asbestos. During the abatement process, there was a fire. Knowing that asbestos was present required significant preparation, especially as it related to PPE. Prior to going in, I changed out of my clothes and put on medical scrubs because they were lightweight. This was South Florida in the summer. So the heat exhaustion was a hazard to have to deal with. Then on top of the scrubs, I put on Tyvek suits that would completely seal and prevent any of the asbestos fibers from impacting my skin, and completely covered up and taped all the openings. Prior to going in and putting on additional protection for my feet with steel-toed and steel-shank shoes, then I put on a full respirator, a full-face respirator. This protected me from the inhalation of the products of combustion as well as the asbestos fibers themselves. All of this protection created the additional hazard of being in South Florida in the summer with the heat and humidity. We had to be very conscious of the working environment and because of the heat. So we were battling multiple hazards that were almost competing. The hazards of exposure to the asbestos and the off-gassing from the debris, as well as the hazards associated with the personal protection equipment itself. So that caused us to have to be very careful how we operated throughout that investigation.
Clean PPE reduce the safety and health risk. It is recommended that the PPE be cleaned frequently to reduce the level of and bodily contact with contaminants. The cleaning prolongs the life of protective ensembles and help maintain their performance. PPE selection, care, and the maintenance, or we call it SCAM, standards specify the system for the department's PPE program and how frequent inspection, cleaning, and maintenance must be performed. In all cases, the proper cleaning and the maintenance of protective garments and equipment must follow the manufacturer's instruction. This includes the manufacturer's guideline for appropriate cleaning solution that will clean the surface without harming them in the process. The SCAM standard provides recommendation for cleaning procedure if the manufacturer is no longer available to provide this instruction. Again, the SCAM stand for selection, care, and maintenance of your PPE. Ha? So it's not the SCAM you get used. It is not the SCAM you usually use. You know. So let's check in. What is the name of the fire-resistant PPE that firefighter wear to protect their head, the neck, and the face? Answer? Okay. The answer is balaclava. That's right. The firefighter wear a fire-resistant hood called a balaclava made of Nomex to protect their head, neck, and the face. It is not baklakaba. It's not baklakaba. Balaclava. Okay? So I also get confused. Okay? So maybe you're getting things wrong. Huh? Not baklakaba. That's different thing. Huh? Which of the statements are true about frequent cleaning of PPE? So select all, apply. There are three potential answers, Mr. Mustedi. Okay, so Mr. Brian, A, C, and D. Correct. Mr. Joseph, Mr. Rahil, I think Mr. Brian, Rahil, and Joseph are all ready to take their exam. No? That's right, the frequent cleaning of PPE reduce the safety and health risk and the level of body contact with contaminants. Cleaning prolong the life of protective ensembles, help maintain their performance. The Fire Protection Handbook covers the fireground operation in Section 13, Chapter 1. The term fireground operation describes the fire scene where the tactical and strategic action and the standard operating procedure or simply SOPs are directed by an incident commander. Remember guys that there should be no more than one incident commander. The president planning involved gathering information about the facility construction, the type of occupancy, the type of hazard, and the fire protection system in advance of an incident to create an action plan for a possible fire event. Fireground operation use those preparatory measures to deploy the firefighting crew and support resources to accomplish the tactical objectives identified in the incident action plan. The incident commander, or IC, must size up the scene, then coordinate, organize, and manage the overall operation. As needed, the IC or incident commander assign the necessary subordinate section, branches, division, group, strike team, and task force to reduce the span of control and create an effective incident management organization. The figure 13.1.3 in the Fire Protection Handbook provides a size up checklist. So this is the one we are talking about, no? The size up checklist. Life safety, this is all what we need to check. We are going to respond in case of ground fire operation. No? Life safety, the type of extinguishment, the property conservation, because we also want to minimize not just the life losses, but including the property damages, the structure, the resources, and the time required. And the timing of the day, for example, also are important consideration. In the size up, part of your size up checklist responding the fireground operation. Let's check at some of the organizational concern of the incident commander. So one of that is the life safety. The firefighter's life is valued as being as important as any other human life. And those firefighters is the most valued resource of any fire department. Measures taken to reduce the risk posed to firefighter are essential and critical components of the life safety priority. NFPA 1500, or the Standard of the Fire Department Occupational Safety and Health and Wellness Program, identifies many provisions to improve the firefighter safety and the incident scene. NFPA 1012, or the 101, or simply what we know as a life safety code, provides another requirements, standards, and provisions to protect the life and the safety of all the individuals. So another concern of the IC is the extinguishment. There are two general types of operation as a structural fire, offensive and defensive. During offensive operation, the firefighter enter the building and conduct interior life safety, extinguishment, and property conservation duty. An offensive approach is preferred whenever it can be conducted safely and effectively. A defensive or non-attack strategy of extinguishment is used whenever the risk-benefit analysis reveal that the risk to the firefighter outweighs any possible benefit that might be achieved by conducting an offensive attack. For example, fighting a fire in a stable building and where there are no lives to be saved justify defensive approach. However, it is not always clear-cut, and the IC's training and experience are key factors in selecting the proper attack or non-attack defensive extinguishment strategy. And lastly, the property conservation. In the fire event, the life safety and extinguishment activity are assigned first priority, with property conservation being delayed until all life safety and extinguishment tasks has been addressed. However, this should not be misconstrued to mean the property conservation is unimportant. The fire department are expected to save both lives and property, and the property conservation are a key part of incident operation. Therefore, the fire personnel should be assigned to the specific property conservation duty, such as covering or removing exposed furniture as soon as possible. It is important to remember that the life safety and extinguishment activity are performed properly and quickly. The property damage will be kept to as minimum as possible. Let's check in. Okay, the first question is, which deployment and organization strategy involves a risk-benefit analysis? This is what we discussed. Either we will do offensive or defensive strategy. Okay, so Mr. Jaraj, Conrad, correct. The defensive or non-attack strategy of extinguishment is used whenever the risk-benefit analysis reveal that the risk of the firefighter outweighs any possible benefit that might be achieved by conducting an offensive attack. And lastly, we discussed the community risk reduction.
Many different definitions of community. Many different definitions of community risk reduction. For some people, it's talking about their prevention activities as a whole. For other people, it's a full-on process that involves lots of different steps. And for a lot of folks, they're really just not sure. They've heard that public education is now community risk reduction, or the fire prevention division is now community risk reduction. So we thought one of the important things that we could do is help normalize the definition around community risk reduction. And we can do that with the help of NFPA 1300, which is a new standard for NFPA, which is due for release in June of 2019. So that is the standard on community risk assessment and community risk reduction plan development. It's a long name. But in that, we talk about the definition of community risk reduction, and it is the process for identifying and prioritizing risks in the community, and then coming up with a plan to address those risks. It's not a word-for-word definition, but it works. It really requires an all-hands-on-deck approach. It requires input from stakeholders and partners in the community, and that way it really has an all hazards focus, which is a little bit different than how prevention was considered in the past. Fire prevention was handled by the fire department, crime prevention was handled by the police department, prevention around health issues might have been handled by the health department. But what we're finding is that with a really solid community risk reduction process, prevention can move out of silos and resources can be used more effectively to address the risks in the communities.
There are two major components of community risk reduction program: the use of the 5 E's and engaging the community. The 5 E's: education, enforcement, engineering, emergency response, and economic incentives are part of comprehensive multifaceted approach to reduce the chosen risk. Collectively, the 5 E's are known as mitigation strategy. And education, let us start. Most individuals are familiar with education strategy through the fire safety techniques such as stop, drop, and roll. The public education is provided to raise the awareness and understanding about the fire, to lower the incident of fire, as well as to reduce the injury from it. Education is also important in supporting the risk reduction changes arising from the engineering and enforcement strategies. Let us discuss the enforcement and the enforcement strategies used to reduce the risk through the use and requirement of the code and standard. This is accomplished through a code inspectors, building plan review, the engine company inspection, and so on. The enforcement strategy rely on updates to the code and standards that are based upon the engineering innovations. Engineering, the objective is to build the safeguards into the product and material that by design eliminate or reduce the risk. The fire protection professional routinely apply these engineering safeguards to the fire and building code in both new and existing construction. Emergency response. Lastly, the community and risk reduction planner realize that there are many risks that simply cannot be mitigated effectively through the other strategy. In this case, the strategy is to ensure there is adequate emergency response capability to mitigate the fire or emergency event when occur. For example, the community in Southern California adopted the code and standard to minimize the risk of wildland fire, and a well-designed public education program have been delivered. Yet, the wildland fire is still occur and threaten hundreds of homes each season. Only a well-equipped and well-trained emergency response force can contain and control the fire to protect the lives and the property. Okay, and let us discuss the engaging community. Economic incentive is used to influence a personal or corporate behavior through the financial incentives or otherwise these incentives. One example of this use of economic incentive is to reduce the risk is a fire department provides smoke alarm at no cost to the homeowners to increase their use. Okay, now let's go on to the engaging the community. The traditional component of the 5E, engage the community, involves the fire department and emergency response team becoming active in community organization and participating in community events, particularly in their own neighborhood. The goal is to earn the trust of those living in the neighbor, then to build credibility from that trust and eventually gain their support for risk reduction activity. It is particularly important to engage the group within a community that are mostly likely to be negatively impacted by the risk. Let's check in our knowledge. First question is, what is the definition of community risk reduction? Answer? Okay, so the answer is only one. A practice or approach to provide all hazard protection to a community. Or a CRR is a practice of approach to provide all hazard protection to a community. Another question is, why is engaging the community an important additional step to the 5 mitigation strategy for CRR or community risk reduction? So here the answer is multiple. There are three potential answers here. Okay, Mr. Joseph Mar, you are correct. Engaging the community, earn the trust of those living there. To build credibility from the trust, eventually gains the support for its reduction activity. And that's all. This is we have discussed everything from the pre-incident planning, organizing the fire loss, training, public emergency service, fire department apparatus, the use and function of PPE, fire operation, and community risk reduction. And now you have completed this module of organizing the fire and rescue services. It is review the content. We review the content of section 12 and 13 of your fire protection handbook. And we learn the steps involved in the pre-incident planning and get a better understanding of how the fire operation and emergency response service are organized. The challenge and requirements of fire emergency training were presented, as were the operation of public emergency services, alarm, dispatch, and communication system. We also had an opportunity to review the necessary apparatus and equipment needed in the fire department and became familiar with the cleaning and maintenance standard of PPE. Finally, we summarized the management of the fire response operation. So that's all for this module. And again, we have a quiz that you need to answer. We need you to get at least 70% in order to pass the quiz. So you can start answering now. So let me check. So some of you got 100% correct. No? So congratulations to Mr. Brian. You got 100%. Okay. Mr. Joseph, 100% also. Mr. Muhammad, pass, 70%. Mr. Conran, no? 90%. So the rest, uh, so that's why I thought, no, some of you are already, I think, already prepared to take the actual exam. Anyway, let us go with the answer. Which of these is a type of public fire protection which is in effect a separate independent unit of government with its own governing body composed of commissioner, trustees, and other officials, commonly supported by a tax levy throughout the district, the fire district, page 49. In a fire event, which of these activities is very important, but is the last on the operational priority list? Property conservation, page 154. Supervisor of communication system should be responsible and competent people whose duties include A. Directing, testing, and inspection program, page 102. More of the PPE device are considered part of the atmosphere supplying respirator family, SCBA and SAR, page 130. Typically, body protection and symbols or structural firefighting consists which of these? Page 131, tornado coats and pants. The most common type of company in the fire department is an engine company, page 63. Which of the following is not one of the mitigation strategy of the 5As or of CRR? There's no such things as encouragement. You have to go to page 160 of the module. In addition to NFPA 101, Life Safety Code, which of these identify the provision for the priority of life safety at an incident scene? NFPA 1500, page 152. The first step in creating a communication network is to establish a communication center, page 99. And lastly, in terms of fire and emergency service personnel, which of the following does fire protection handbook indicate? It is more than the matter of efficiency. It can at any moment become a matter of personal survival. B. Acquiring and maintaining a high level of training. Page number 84. And so far, that's all for tonight. And see you next meeting. And again, congratulations to those who are almost prepared to take their exam. Thank you and have a pleasant evening to everyone.